You're listening to the Be So Good podcast with Colin Pearce. Colin says you are 10 times better than you think. So why not be so good that they simply can't ignore you? Here's your host, Colin Pearce.
I guess you've heard of these businesses. You've probably dealt with a lot of them. I'll list a few and see if you can grab what it is they have in common. Well-known names: McDonald's, KFC, Baker's Delight, Subway, LJ Hooker, Australia Post, barbecues galore. Well, yep, they and about 1,000 other companies make up the sector called franchising, part of nearly 4,000 worldwide. They support about 79,000 individual franchisees and contribute about $144 billion to the Australian economy. And worldwide, there are millions of franchise businesses. So before we go much further, I need to give you a definition. A franchise is a business that is owned and operated by a franchisor, sometimes called ZORs. And the person or firm that owns that name and brands and systems is the franchisor. Now, the franchisees are people who purchase the license to use all the brands and systems and names unless they drift away from the system. Now, our guest on this episode is a specialist that deals with many of them in his firm, the Franchise Relationships Institute. Greg Nathan is a business psychologist and an author, a consultant, and he's been recognised globally for his expertise, his great skills in the area of franchising. He's written 5 books. He's also somewhat of a blues exponent and collects stringed instruments. When you hear him speak, you will understand the models that he's developed are dynamic for all kinds of businesses and for life itself. So here he is, Greg Nathan. Greg, you're famous. You're a legend in my lunchtime. I'm so pleased to have you on this podcast. It's a great privilege for me.
Thank you.
Now, you have got a vast experience. Once you were a humble student studying psychology, did you ever think that one day you would be a world famous industrial relations psychologist helping franchisees the worldwide?
It's a great question, because the thing that keeps me grounded is I often remind myself, if I thought that I would be doing this today, let's say, for instance, I'm talking to the CEO of, a global organization, and he's asking my advice, and I'm often asking myself, this is amazing. I never would have thought I would be talking to the CEO of a global organization when I started this business. So no, I never thought it would evolve into what it has.
Where'd you go to uni?
Went to Monash University, and I studied, originally I studied hotel management and catering, because my parents wanted me to have a safe, job that they thought, I liked cooking and I could run a hotel and it would be really good and stable job. I lasted 18 months there, and really, I enjoyed the cooking. And we did a subject on human behavior, which I really enjoyed. And we did another subject, which you would like, on communication skills. And it was all about how to write. And I loved that topic, but I hated all the rest. I hated the accounting and all that other stuff. So I dropped out, traveled around Australia for a year to find myself, lived in Byron Bay for about 6 months in the Clark's Beach Caravan Park. And one day sitting on the beach, this sounds a little bit woo-woo-woo, but I just had this thought that I need to go back to Melbourne and study psychology. And it was a very compelling feeling that I needed to do this. And that's what I did. And I followed that. And that's really what started me on my second career.
So how long did you study psychology for?
Yep, it was a long journey. I started at La Trobe Uni, and I had to talk my way in because I didn't quite qualify. So I went to see the professor of the head of the psychology department, and he wouldn't see me. And I just kept ringing, eventually I got an appointment, and he said, "What do you want?" I said, "I really want to study psychology." And he said, "You have to apply through the government, agencies." And I said, "I've done all that, but I want to make sure I get in." Yes. And he said, "Well, I can't do anything about that." And I said to him, "Who's in charge here? Who runs the department?" And he said, "I do." And I said, "And you're telling me you can't choose who comes in?" And he goes, fair comment. And I got in.
Oh, so how about that?
And that was 4 years. I spread it out. I was working part-time in a bakery while I was doing that because I was living away from home. And that's where I got my foot into franchising.
Was that a
Because
Brumbies? Was that a
yeah,
Brumbies bakery?
It was. It was they ran company-owned stores, and they just started franchising. And I started to work for this beast called a franchisee that was very different from working with the company-owned stores. And I really enjoyed working with the franchisees. They were just kind of real people. They were very passionate about their businesses. And I formed a relationship with one of those guys that you know, John Salomon.
Uh-huh.
And John eventually offered me a partnership to go into business with him. So this was after I'd qualified as a psychologist. I was working by that stage at Monash University, running neuropsychology tests on people that had had strokes. And while in theory, that was an honourable thing to do because we were trying to work out people who had had damage to the right side of their brain, it causes a thing called left hemi neglect where they can't perceive things on the left side of their body. And it was sold into me that I was going to make a difference to these people, but in reality, I was just really doing work so my supervisor could get another paper published, and I was getting a bit bored. And so when I was offered this opportunity, I thought something new. I come from a small business family. My father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather have all run their own businesses. So I had it in the blood. And that's how I kind of got launched into it.
I'm tempted to say, working with people who had a, whatever you called it, a process.
Left hemi neglect, it's called.
Thank you. That's similar to working with a lot of franchisees and franchisors whose right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing.
Yes, and we also have blind spots, don't we?
That's a sick joke.
We can't, we don't know how we're coming across to other people sometimes. So it's all nice analogy, yes.
Wow. You went on to buy your own franchise, didn't you? And a couple of them.
Yeah, so I was in partnership with John. We had 3 stores, and that's when I started to experience the life as a franchisee where you've got the head office telling you what to do, but then they're not your manager. And so sometimes it's like, get out of my face. And other times when you need help and guidance and they're saying, oh, but it's your business, you have to work it out yourself. So I found that a bit confusing. And when I actually was offered a job with the franchisor, so you know this thing called karma, what goes around comes around. It's true. So all those difficult conversations that I had with the franchisor and my field manager who used to come and visit me, I used to give him a hard time. What do you want? What are you doing here? How are you going to help me make more money? I started to get it from my franchisees when I was working in head office. And I thought, this is kind of interesting. There's a play going on. The play is called franchising. It's a drama. And we have actors like franchisees and franchisors. And it plays out in a very similar way, and normally not nice. And I thought there's got to be a better way. There's a lot of conflict going on. This was in the 1989, and I thought there's got to be a better way. So I decided to go back to psychology and find out through research, how can franchisees and franchisors work well together and make money, enjoy their work, enjoy their relationships, and deliver a great experience for their customers. And so that became my driving mission. We call it profitable partnerships.
Okay, so after a time, you must have resigned from the ZOR business, being working with the franchisor, and set up this business, Franchise Relationships Institute.
And it started off as Greg, Nathan, and Associates. My associate was my daughter. And then we gradually grew. I employed some people, and then we rebranded as the Franchise Relationships Institute. And I like that because Institute is about research and education, and that's what we are.
How many people do you have working for you now? And the answer is not about half. Go what?
We've got a team of 10.
Wow. And are they all shrinkologists?
No, it's an interesting combination. Half of the team come from a franchising background where they've been field consultants and so on. And half of the team come more from the psychology training, and we work together. And I'm always, getting them to collaborate so they understand each other's perspectives. And I, of course, have got both sides.
The first time I came across you was one of your fans showing me what I call your famous up and down graph thingy, which of course is your well-developed sigmoid graph, sine
Well,
curve,
we've got
whatever.
2 curves. I'll take you through the first curve and then I'll take you through the second curve. How's that?
Good. Yes.
The first curve is called the franchisee factor, and it plots the emotional journey the franchisee goes through, which I went through when I was a franchisee. And it starts with Glee. This is fantastic. I'm going to be in my business for myself. So we've got happiness up here.
Okay.
And then we go down a little bit when we think about the fees that we're paying to the franchisor, which is normally 6.5%.
Now, wait a minute. I also noted when I first saw this, it was so like marriage. It was so like starting in a new footy or netball club. It was so like starting any job. So for you watching, you've got to understand that the reason I put Greg into this program was that so you would be able to draw the parallels that Greg is making in franchising with your own life and so many other things. So everything new starts with Glee.
A new journey. Yeah. So it's great, in marriage, we've got the sex and our partner's beautiful and we love them so much and they can't do a thing wrong. And then we start to realize, hang on a minute, there's a few rough edges here, but we'll rub those off. And then you realize you can't. So you get more frustrated. So in the relationship with the franchise, we've got the fees we're paying the franchisor. What am I getting for my money? And in psychology, there's a phenomena called the self-serving bias. Self-serving bias. What that means is when things go well, we attribute it to me. When things don't go well, it's your fault, Colin. So in a franchise relationship, when the franchisee's making money, it's like, aren't I great? And I was like this when I was a franchisee. When things weren't going well, what are you doing to fix up my sales? What are you doing to fix up this product issue we've got here? So we call that the me stage. And then the free stage, which is at the bottom of satisfaction, is where the franchisee starts to push back. So those of you who've got teenage kids, it's that point at which nothing, you idiot parent, I don't know how you've got dumber over the years as I've grown up. And so at that point, the franchisee's thinking, franchisor's a bunch of idiots. They don't know anything. I don't need them. And then there's a realization, hang on, maybe there is something that I can draw from this. And we start to see the other perspective. The franchisor normally has a conversation and we sort out a better way to work together. And then finally, we call it the we stage, where together we can work together. We choose to work together. So some people talk about it, it's like from me to we, which I kind of like that. So that's the franchisee factor model. So it starts high, goes down, and then comes up. And it does have analogies to marriage and friendships. Any interdependent relationship where you can't walk away if things don't go well, this curve applies to that.
It's raised dozens of questions, but I'll save those till you finish talking about the ZORs, the franchisor perspective of the curve.
Yeah. So we've got the franchisee perspective going through the Glee and the fee and the me and the free and the C and the we stage. The franchisor's job is to lead the franchisee through this process in the least painful way as possible. Now, the franchisor's job is to lead, and anyone who's listening to this podcast who's in a leadership role, what I'm about to tell you is relevant to you. There's 3 things that people expect from a good leader. And the first is be real, be transparent, be yourself. So franchisors need to disclose information to the franchisees about what they're doing and why, and not hiding stuff. And there's been a parliamentary inquiry into franchising over the last 2 years. And one of the big issues that has emerged is that franchisors need to be more transparent in the way they're running their businesses. So that would be the first thing. It's not that difficult. You should have nothing to hide if you're doing the right thing. And a lot of these businesses do great work for the community and so on. The second thing is you need to be competent and make good decisions, evidence-based decisions based on data. Otherwise, the franchisee is saying, well, how did you arrive at this decision that I need to spend $10,000 on new signage? Have you done the research? Have you done your homework? The third, and if you can't answer that, then the franchisee is going to go down into that free stage that I talked about.
Yeah.
The third thing is, remember, franchisees are humans. They're not businesses. So by all means, look after the commercial well-being of the franchisees, but also treat them with kindness and respect. They've got families, they've got aspirations, they've got feelings. And those three things is not that difficult. So be transparent, be competent, be caring. And if the franchisor is doing that, you'll find that mild frustration. The franchisee will work through that. Any interdependent relationship where you can't just walk away, people will always have those feelings. We've all experienced it in marriage. I've been married for 33 years. Sometimes I'm sure my wife wants to throttle me, but we talk it through. There's love and tolerance there, and we reach that nice acceptance stage, and that's really where we want to be.
That the position of the franchisor is so patterned, or so the similar pattern applies to owners and managers of small businesses, or any businesses for that matter, doesn't it?
It does, and I'll take you through the second curve column that I was talking about. So imagine we're going on a journey. You and I are traveling on a journey together, right? So we hop in the car and you say, you want to stop and get a hamburger? No, Colin, I don't like hamburgers. I want something more healthy. And then after a while, we start to get on each other's nerves, but I can't jump out of the car. We're stuck together because we're going to Brisbane, right? From Melbourne. It's going to take a while. So the franchise E factor I talked about, that's like how we feel about each other. And maybe when we get to Sydney, halfway, we kind of resolve that we're going to love and tolerate each other. We weren't as excited as when we started, but it's okay. I kind of get you. So that's that journey. The other journey is the destinations we're stopping at on the way. And that's the business journey. So anyone who's running a business, you start off, you investigate what you're going to do, and then you make the decision, you open the business. So you go in through a dip. Initially, we call it the perspiration stage. It's tough. And whenever you start something new, like this podcast today, we've been working through some kinks, haven't we? We start something new, but we sort it out. And then we start to get traction. We call that consolidation. Starts to grow, starts to get better. But if you continue to do the same thing, you're going to get bored, you're going to get tired, you're going to plateau, and you're going to then go, so we call that maturation. And if you don't do something different, you're going to go into degradation. So we say you've got to go through reformation and reinvent yourself. And in business, you need to do that every 3 to 4 years. Otherwise, you're going to go down, my friend. And you've done it over the years. I've done it over the years. We've both been running our businesses for a long time. I've been through reformation, that reinvention stage, 12 times.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've just been through one just last week. I've appointed a new CEO for the business. And so he started. We're getting to know each other. We're ironing out the kinks and things. So we're going to have a little bit, getting to know. And pretty soon our working relationship will start to consolidate and the business will then head into growth again.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Wow. That's a very, very clear description of what goes on daily. Now, where does the Franchise Relationships Institute come into play in those situations? The franchisee has a problem, they call you. The franchisor has a problem, they call you. When do they call you? What are their problems that make them ring you up? And what do you do?
Yeah. So we sometimes are a little bit like a marriage guidance counsellor. Often the franchisor will call me and say, I've got a problem. The franchisees are really annoyed at me. They're not talking to me. I don't know what I've done wrong. And so I will sit with a group of franchisees with the franchisor team, and we'll set up some ground rules about respectful conversations. People need to listen to each other. We talk about hold strong opinions loosely. So be prepared to change your mind in the face of new information. That's maturity. That's good. It's not a sign of weakness. And people listen to each other. Sometimes it's a formal mediation. Sometimes it's just a facilitated discussion. And at the end of that, people go, you know what? Not a bad person, this other person. I can see he was well-meaning. So that's some of the work we do. My preference is to do preventative work through education. So we run courses like a culture of franchising course, where we teach franchise or executives in management teams all over the world. We do it like this virtually, how to be a responsible and effective franchisor leader. And, you know, we talk about the things I mentioned earlier: caring, competent, transparent. What does that mean in practice? So that's part of our work. And we do a lot of research too, Colin. We do franchisee satisfaction surveys where we can actually measure using psychometric questions how people feel in an objective way and map it. And then we can advise the franchisor, if you want to improve satisfaction, these are some things you might want to look at, and we coach them around that.
I've seen the conferences, I've seen the results, and I've heard people speaking about you, and this must be an extraordinarily satisfying process for you, so that you might go back and speak to that first professor who wouldn't let you into the course and say, do you realise who I am? I am a highly effective consultant to the franchise industry the world over. I fix people like no psychologist ever did. But you don't actually fix them, do you? You just show them the way to fix themselves. And so with your advice to do that, that'd be about right?
No, I have to disagree with you on something, because I never think that, like, do you know who I am? I think that's deluded. And my wife will often wives are great for keeping us grounded, right? And so if I come back and I say, oh, I did this awesome talk today, she says, get over yourself. So I think it is important that we do stay grounded, and we're always learning. So I put out a tip every 2 weeks.
Yes.
And people can register for my tips if they'd like to. They can go to our website at franchiserelationships.com. It's free. And you mentioned one came out this morning on the growth mindset. And the growth mindset is just about stay grounded and just keep trying to improve yourself. You never arrive. There's always something more to learn. So rather than trying to prove ourselves, we're trying to improve ourselves. And that's the philosophy I try and live by as best I can.
I have often asked you to, if I can repeat or reprint your articles with full acknowledgement, of course. And I've got to tell you, if you would like a really intelligent read full of really useful, new, fresh information, you've got to subscribe to Greg Nathan's fortnightly tips. They are terrific. I don't think I've ever read one where I thought, what's he talking about? They always hit the button right on the middle. Greg.
And if we could join the Mutual Admiration Society, I also read your tips and your stories. And I think they've often got a moral underbelly to it, if you like, or an undertone, which I really appreciate as well. Thank you.
One of the reinventions coming up, and by the time this goes on the World Wide Web, the reinvention might have taken place, but my lifelong ambition has been to be the storytelling works guy, because I like storytelling and storytelling does work. Speaking of which, how many times have you had to tell your franchisor to go back over their story, their foundational story, the original values in the story, and pass that on to the franchisees? I would say that's probably one of the most important things you and I do, is get them to go back to the roots.
It does. And in fact, that's one of 3 things that we see in truly great sustainable franchise networks. The first is that they take their franchisees through, I'm just going to wind back to the sigmoid curve again, that they take them through that curve as a network. Every 2 to 3 years, the franchisor has to innovate, but bring the franchisees with them. So they've got to understand change management and psychology, so people are engaged and want to come on the journey. So that's the first thing. The second thing is what you've just mentioned, that they never lose sight of their values and their purpose. And they're continually putting every decision through a filter. Is this right for our culture? Is this right for our customers? Is this right? Is it consistent with our values and what we stand for? Is it in the best interest of our franchisees? And then of course, is it in the best interest of our shareholders? But companies who make decisions in the best interest of their shareholders first and put the other people low, that's a pathetic approach to business, and it doesn't work. It's not sustainable. So I find when you're thinking about the customers and the franchisees first, then everything else falls into place. You've got a good, solid company. And the third thing that these companies do is they understand they're in the business of franchising as well as selling pizzas or washing dogs or providing mortgages. They're in two businesses. So they've got to be good at franchising, which means they've got to understand the franchisee factor curve. They've got to understand the qualities of how to lead and influence franchisees and all those specialized skills that we teach.
Absolutely stunning. I could talk to you for another hour and still be gasping for more. So thank you. It's time for us to close. I want to commend franchiserelationships.com. Franchise Relationship. Go on, you say it.
So it's Franchise Relationships Institute is our brand, and franchiserelationships.com is the website. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Greg. And if you call him or you email him or respond to one of his tips, you'll find the same kind, generous, intelligent man that you've been listening to for the last few minutes. So I'm saying thank you for watching, and thank you, Greg Nathan.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Good value, hey. Please go to iTunes or YouTube and leave a positive comment so that other people can find it. It helps with the ratings, I'm told, and I'd like to have as many followers as possible. Naturally, it helps spread the good word that people are 10 times better than they think, and they need to hear this regularly, don't you? I do. Now, I'd like to offer you something in return. I'm offering a 30-day free trial to the Colin Pierce Academy. And at the Academy, you can tune into for free over the 30 days, the business blueprint, the convert your inbound phone leads, the famous Sell More Easier Faster flagship course, and there's a few others there that you can benefit from. Now, I said it's free and actually costs $1, which annoys me, but that's the way the system has to work, unfortunately. But I don't charge you any more. And just before the 30 days are up, if you've had enough, well, you simply tell me and withdraw, and away we go. If you want to stay on, though, well, we'll just charge you the monthly fee and we can build the relationship together. Now, don't forget, you'll be able to get this for free, $1. And for 30 days, all you do is go to colinpierceacademy.com, click the enroll button at the top in the navigation bar, and use the coupon code 30-day trial. Simple. See you soon.
You've been listening to Be So Good with Colin Pierce. Please share the link with someone who needs to be reminded that they are 10 times better than they think. For more episodes, check out the playlist at colinpierce.com/podcast. And don't forget to drop a review in iTunes. It really does make a difference.